Hello, I'm Jeff Byers, and I will be taking you through creating dice, high poly dice. So let's go ahead and get started. This one's for Annie 150, creating high poly dice. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make some changes in the display. So go up to the top menu bar, go to Grid. Next to Grid, click on the option box. When you do that, we're going to go ahead and we've got 12 units across, and we're going to do every 5 units for grid lines, and subdivisions are 5. What we're going to do is we're going to change the grid lines for every 2. So we're going to do 2 here. Okay. The top one should be 20. Okay, so length and width 20, 2, and then the last one is 5. Okay, let's go ahead and apply and close. So now we have a grid unit that looks like this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a Polygon Cube. Go into the primitives. Again, if you don't see this shelf, click on what looks like a gear, and make sure that Shelf Tabs is on. Okay. Then what we can do is you can click on the tabs. So click on Polygons, click on the cube, right? And this comes up. So what we want to do with the cube is we want to go ahead and click off and click back on the cube. Make sure it's in object mode. Make sure in the channel editor. If you don't see the channel editor and you see something like this, just go Control A. That'll bring you back. Okay? We're going to scale this cube 4, scale X, 4 for scale Y, and 4 for scale Z. Hit Enter. And then under Poly Cube, basically what we want to do with this is we want to break this up in 10. So subdivision width is 10, subdivision height is 10, and subdivision depth is 10. Alright, so now we've got the start of our cube and a foundation. So I'm going to click off again, so I don't need that. I'm going to click on this again, and we can see that this is what our cube looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the lower part of the cube entirely off, and we're going to keep the top face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the face, go to face mode. So right click, go to face mode. I'm going to go to the side view or the front view, and what we're going to do is we're going to marquee select, and what I'm doing is I'm holding down the left mouse button, okay, and I'm clicking on the corner here below the top. So anything below here will be selected. So when I go in my perspective, you can see that just the bottom half is selected. Okay, hit the delete key, and that leaves us just the top. Okay, all right. So that's our starting point. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the divot. So when we look at dice, we see that there is a divot. So we're gonna actually create that divot. So if I go in here and do and Google dice real quick, you're going to see that we have those divots. And if you look at that, we can see that those divots, we want to recreate those. They're actually pushed into the dice, physically pushed in. So we're going to create those. All right. To do that, we're going to go ahead and make a divot out of a sphere. So I'm going ahead and click on the sphere. Okay. And we want the sphere, we're going to scale that sphere, but we're going to change the subdivisions, and you can see we've got this little icon here. We can move that around. If you don't see that icon, then we can go under Polysphere off to the right hand side. Under Inputs, you see Polysphere, click on that. This comes up when I click on it. And we can change the subdivisions to 8 for subdivision access and 6 for subdivision height. And hit Enter. There we go. Go ahead and click off and click back on the object. What we're going to do with this is we are going to cut the upper part off to create the divot. So I'm going to go to face mode again. This time we're going to marquee select the top of it and hit the delete key. I'm going to go ahead and select this. Okay. And what we're going to do now is go to the perspective view, Right. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do this now. I should have done this before I cut it in half, but I'm going to scale this at 0.35 all the way down. So 0.35, 0.35, and if you get some wonkiness, so what I would do is probably scale it before I cut the top off. I forgot to do that, but that's okay. If you have that problem, delete it, start over again. And then before you cut the top off, scale it down. But it seemed to work for me just fine. Okay. So what I'm going to do here now is fairly simple. Is I'm going to click on up at the right below the marking or the menu bar. I'm going to go to Snap to Grids. I'm going to click on it. Okay. And then I'm going to hit the W key with the pivot selected and move it up. So this will basically snap it. As you can see, it's snapping to the grid. There we go. And we want it just to snap to the top of the plane. Okay? There we go. So far so good. What I would do is save your project before you move on. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the top view. Okay? So the top view, we have this guy selected. So this is what we got so far. So you can see the plane, and we can see the divot. Okay, everything's scaled up properly. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the edge mode, right click over the object, select edge, and double click on the outer edge. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now another tip is that if I have this selected, you can hit the F key, and you can zoom out a little bit if you want to. So hit the F key will frame, the F as in Frank, frame the object. So F key will frame. So it's a little easier. I can right click over it, go to edge, double click on the outer edge, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and extrude this. So this icon right here on the shelf editor in polygons, if I hover over it, it says extrude. Okay, click on it. And what I'm going to do is select the arrow and move it out. Now I've got snap on. You see that snapping? So I'm going to go Control Z back, and I'm snapping it, see? But I don't want to snap it. I want to go ahead and turn off snap and move it, okay, out a little bit. Okay? So the numbers that I want you to type in here are 0.035. Okay? So basically I'm going to click on this number right here. So I can do 0.035 and enter. There we go. So that gives me the exact extrusion that I want. So I'm going to click off. Okay. And I'm going to go to selection mode and select the divot again. Okay, so what we're doing now is we are setting up our divot so that it will properly smooth. Now the divot doesn't really look like a divot yet. Okay, so from the front or side view, doesn't matter, we notice that this object here on this side here extruded kind of funky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that edge. Okay, that is the outer edge, by the way. The outer edge is kind of moved down a little bit. So I want you to zoom in from the front or side views, hit the W key, and click on the snap tool. Okay, make sure the snap is on at the top, and move it up, and that will snap it where it needs to be. There we go. So that's all cleaned up. Okay, the next step is to make sure the object is selected, okay, the divot. And what we're going to do now is we're going to scale it. So hit the R key, and with the green bar selected, the green square, hold it down and move it down. So move your mouse down, and that will actually scale it in a little bit. We don't want it to be a big divot. We want it to be a pretty small divot, something like that. Okay? Alright, so now we've got our nice little divot here. The next thing we're going to do is make sure you have the object selected. Again, you can go into object mode, or you can go into selection mode. Okay, this allows us to select the object. If it's hard to select, go underneath, select the object. Okay, once it's selected, we're going to do edit, delete by type history, and we're going to freeze transformations. Okay, so let's do that now. So edit, delete by type history. Okay, modify, freeze transformations. There we go. And so what that's going to do is it's going to clear us up, so I can move this up if I want to, and I can type in 0 here as well. Move it back down again. So that's what freeze transformations will do for us as well. We can move it around if we want to see it. If it gets in the way, we can also type in 0 to get it back to where it needs to be. So I can click on that, hit 0, and hit enter. Okay. All right. So basically we got the foundation and the ring all set up, and all we need to do now is duplicate this plane 6 times. Okay, so I'll show you. So I'm going to go in here and go Control D, and then I'm going to hit the rotational value. Now with rotational, I'm going to double click on it and show you something new, hopefully. So with this, we're going to do a transform constraint, and we're going to click on, let's see here. I'm sorry, step snap. We're going to go into relative, and we're going to type in 45 degrees. There we go. So that'll allow us to move this around. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to move this around. So you can see how it snaps. It's pretty cool. Click on this guy, Control D, and rotate it. Okay. Click on this guy, Control D, and rotate it. There we go. Click on this guy, Control D, and rotate it. And one last one, Control D, rotate it all the way down to the bottom, like that. Again, you probably didn't see it, but I rotated it, and just using that snapping tool for the rotate is wonderful. There we go. It saves a lot of time. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this guy right here. Okay, wireframe unshaded allows me to see things in wireframe, which is kind of nice. At this point, I mean, we can turn off the show grid anytime we want and bring it back again by going to show, and I can take that off if I want to, if I feel that's kind of getting in the way. Right now, you know, it really isn't. I can see through all that stuff, so I'm good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start cutting holes for this divot. Okay, so into these. So if I want number 1 to be up here, we're going to start deleting the faces to this. So I'm going to hit delete. Make sure you don't delete your object accidentally. Delete and delete. Now you notice that the inside of that divot is hard to see. So if I click on it, it's black. Well, we want it to be gray, so it's facing the right way. The normals are facing the right way, so and it's easier to see. To do that, hold down your spacebar and go to Mesh Display and go to Reverse, and that's going to reverse the normals. Click on that, and then now we can see it. Now we can see that divot. There we go. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get this set up, and I'm going to show you some new tools which are kind of fun. So I'm going to right click over this object and go to Vertex, and I want you to click on this vertex right there. Hold the V key down. Now you have to hit the W key and then hold the V as in Victor and hold it down, and your left mouse button, click over top of it and move it. So it's going to snap. Okay? It takes a little getting used to. Again, hold down the V key as in Victor and then hold down your left mouse button and it'll snap it. So click on the next one, hold the V key down, then the left mouse button, and then move your mouse and towards that point, and it'll snap it. And do that for every single one of these. Snap it. Snap. There we go. Snap. 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 And snap. So there's our we've got actually the first dot done, which is really, really cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select it. Okay, right mouse button, click it, and select. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a nice edge loop right in here and then right in there. So we're going to finish this divot up. So I'm going to hold the Shift key down, my right mouse button. Make sure you're in object mode. It needs to be green. Shift key, right mouse button, and it goes. I can go into Insert Edge Loop tool. Okay, so I'm going to click on here and click and select that. Select the edge. Okay, select this outer edge. Like that. I'll do it again. Select this edge right here, and then I'm holding down my left mouse button as I'm doing it and moving it in to something like that. Looks good. And then I'm going to select this edge right here, okay, and move that up so we get a nice little dimple. There we go. So those are the two edges that we're going to use, that we're going to actually see in there, and it's going to look really, really good. Okay, so I'm going to go to vertex mode, go to the top view, and you can see this outside edge here is a little wonky. It doesn't really match this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the W key and move that up a little bit. Now I've got snap-on. So if you forget, turn it off. Okay, and then you can move it freely. Okay. So I'm going to go to each one of those, okay, and move it out a little bit so they're all consistently distanced. Oops. There we go. Again, be careful what you're selecting. Alright, so the last one we're going to do is this end one. Move it out a little bit. There we go. Looks good. So that looks pretty consistent. Alright, so with that done, what we're going to do now in the next video, because I think I can't go over 15 minutes on these, so next video we're going to go ahead and cut the holes for each one, and then we're going to duplicate this and move them into their spaces. Alright, until the next video.